these are convictions, right?
Yes.
So these can be felony knockdowns too. So the person's charged with a felony, and it gets knocked down to a misdemeanor. That would include this too, correct?
Yes, many times there are people who are charged, overcharged with felonies, and the court or the DA sees fit to lower the charges to misdemeanors to fit the crime.
And sometimes it's a plea bar.
Sometimes not, but usually that's the case.
Okay. And now on an ICID report, what would happen is if it got knocked down, it would have the original charge, say it was a robbery, okay? And it got knocked down to a grand larceny, all right? It would show on an ICID report that the person was originally arrested for robbery and got knocked down to, and they pleaded guilty to a grand larceny or a petty larceny, correct?
Yes.
And this would expunge that?
What? Well, grand larceny, as you know, under this bill would not be sealed. It would have to have been pleaded down to a petty larceny in order for it to be considered for sealing.
Sorry, Joe, you're right. So if it came down to a petty larceny,
that's right. That
would all be sealed?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if a person is, is it up to 5 that they can get sealed?
Up to 5 what? I'm sorry?
5 misdemeanors they can get sealed?
No, 3.
3. Okay. And how many misdemeanors, is there a limit on how many misdemeanors you have on your record before you can get those 3 sealed?
Yes, 3.
So you can only have...
You can only apply if you've had 3 misdemeanors on your record.
Okay.
Or less. You can have 1 misdemeanor or 2.
All right.
But no more than 3.
Okay. And when we're sealing these here, what I notice is that we have to notify the DA that had the conviction, right?
Yes.
And we have to notify the judge.
Correct.
Right? Who sentenced them.
Yes.
But what I'm noticing is the victim here. Now, is the judge just looking at the victim's statements at the time of the crime?
Well, the judge can look at the victim statements, but the victim will also be notified under this bill, the victims or victims.
Where does it say that? Because I saw that...
It says in the bill on page 2, line 30, that the district attorney shall provide notice to the victim, if any, of the sealing application by mailing written notice to the victim's last known address.
Okay. And how far back does this go? Is there a cap? So if I committed a crime, I'm 80 years old and committed something when I'm 20, okay?
Yeah.
Can I put in to have my misdemeanors sealed?
Yes, you can, but remember that this is operates more like a sealing or an expungement after you've been good for 5 years. That's really the purpose of it. You have to have committed the misdemeanors and then make an application after that conviction is finished with 5 years later before you can be eligible for the sealing.
Do we have any idea the number of cases we could be dealing with here?
I hope there are more than less. I would prefer that there be more than less, because the idea of this bill is to treat somebody who has turned his life around with giving them a second chance. Right. And the idea is that he's been good for 5 years and kept his nose clean, that maybe we can take a chance on him and seal his record. Remembering that if the 5-year period was not something that proved him worthy, that if he commits another crime, then all of the records will be unsealed under this bill.
Okay. So, I mean, are we looking at the tens of thousands of people could apply for this, or 1 million people
I
could
doubt
apply?
it. I think there are less rather than more, unfortunately, because we've drafted this bill, as you can tell, rather narrowly to apply to, sometimes kids get in trouble 4 or 5 times before they realize that they've made terrible mistakes in their life and try to turn it around, and then it's too late. because they can't get any relief from the courts or society. That's what this bill provides or hopes to do.
Okay. So we have an estimated, now the judges, we're short on judges, okay? We were supposed to appoint a bunch of judges, and it seems like that hasn't happened, right? Is there anything in here to put more judges, make more judges available to handle this caseload?
I don't think it's necessary because, as I said, I would like to see us do more, but I think that this is narrowly drawn enough that it won't fill up the docket with a lot of cases. I think there'll be fewer cases than we think.
Okay.
And we may have to come back in the future after we see how well this works to do more.
Right. And the last thing, I think I'm happy to see that even though the records are sealed, all right, if a person applies for a job in law enforcement, whether it's corrections, police department, then they'd have access to these records.
That's
even
correct.
though they're sealed, correct?
That's
so
correct.
You made an exemption for that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.